Welcome to another Student Voice. I'm Hunter Talley. There are many sporting events here at Chattanooga State, but did you know there is a class to get them online or maybe even on TV? I'm here today with the professor of the sports broadcasting class, Chris Goforth. Chris, thank you for joining us.
Good to be here, man.
Yes, thank you. So, Mr. Goforth, what is the sports broadcasting class all about, and what will the students be doing in that class?
Well, what we try to do is to make it as comprehensive as possible. Essentially, the class is, for the most part, broken down into 4 segments. First segment's interviewing, so you learn the proper way to do an interview. When you go to work at ESPN, when you're hired by them, the first thing you do there is you spend 2 days in an interview symposium, if you will, basically where you sit and for 2 days you learn how to interview. We spend about 2 class periods on it, but all the stuff that we learn in that class about how to conduct an interview all comes straight out of what you learn at ESPN. So that's kind of where we start, and that is, to me, I really think maybe the most important thing that people get out of it, because there's a lot of people that say, well, you know, I don't really want to work in sports. Do I want to take this class? And that's the one thing that you can get from this class that I think will really carry over into other parts of life. If you end up working behind the camera as a producer, your job may be at times to create questions for your host to be able to ask,
so you know
or for
the
yeah, exactly.
Right.
So you got to know how to be able to structure those questions. If you may go in a completely different direction, you may end up working in human resources one day, where you're having to interview people for jobs. Knowing how to ask the right questions to get the best answers, I think, is kind of important. So that's where we start. We also do a segment on sports anchoring, or in more radio terms, updates, because we try to work in as much radio or audio rather, as television into this. So we do some updates, anchoring. We do some play-by-play. Fortunately, here at Chattanooga State, we've got enough men's and women's basketball games and baseball and softball games that we can kind of use some of those games that are going on as an opportunity to be able to practice at it. So we do some play-by-play, and we do some show hosting as well. More of the, really more either, podcasting or talk show hosting type things. For folks that are interested in that part of it, even though you may not be a sports fan, if you've got an interest in podcasting, and it may be pop culture, movies, music, whatever, a lot of the same things that we learn, how it relates to sports, you can carry over and do it into other topic genres.
Right.
It doesn't have to just be strictly sports.
Well, we're doing 2 of those things right now. So
yeah, we are. You're being graded.
Hopefully I'm doing a good job.
Well, so far so good. We're early.
Right.
We're early.
So how did you get into sports broadcasting?
Well, for me, it was one of those things where it was really the only thing I ever wanted to do. I figured out pretty early on in life that I was never going to be tall enough to play power forward for the Hawks. I was never going to be fast enough to play, running back for the Cowboys, and I couldn't hit a curveball. So this was the only other way that I had to being able to stay, involved in sports. So when I was a senior in high school, our JV basketball coach came up to me and said, "Broadcasting, isn't that what you want to do?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, why don't you broadcast our high school basketball games?" So that was kind of how it started. I got 2 buddies of mine, one of which had an old school, this was 1990, so don't laugh. It was a camcorder, okay, and a tripod. So we started with a camcorder and a tripod. We went down to the local cable TV station. This was before the days of Comcast and Charter owning everything, so there were still local cable companies. Went down and talked to the guy at the cable company, and he agreed to give us the time. So we didn't have to pay for the time. So we sold ads. Each of us ended up making about $600 off of it, and we did a season of, I think we did about 25 or so games that year. Hopefully those tapes have long been burned or buried somewhere that they will never
Hopefully
resurface.
Hopefully gotten a little better.
Yeah, gosh, I hope. Let's hope. And then from there, I came here.
Awesome.
And did some time and loved my time here at Chattanooga State. I mean, I learned more here during the time that I spent here than I did moving to that 4-year school across town. I felt I was, in terms of being prepared for the workplace, by far the things I learned at Chattanooga State were just, it was so much more real world, real life, kind of like what you guys are doing here with actually able to be hands-on, and you just learn so much more that way.
Right. So you kind of touched on this in the first question I asked, but this class is for everyone, correct? Not just for sports broadcasting.
There are certain parts of this class. Now, I can't teach you to be a sports fan.
Right.
That you either are or you're not. I can't teach that, nor do we have the time in that class to be able to teach you the rules of the sport. So if you want to do play-by-play, it's going to help if you know the rules of the sport.
Right.
If you want to be a show host, it's going to help if you have some sort of knowledge of who Chipper Jones is, of who Tom Brady is. Those kind of things will help you if that's what you choose to do. But from the scientific side of it, if you will, okay? Because I think part of what we do, part of it is art, part of it is science. The art part is purely subjective. The science part of it, though, there is clearly a right way and a wrong way to do things.
That is true.
My job is to make sure you know the right way to do it, regardless of whether it's involves sports news, pop culture, whatever. Make sure you know the right way to be able to do it.
So when and where will this class be or meet?
Well, we'll meet on Fridays, starting in the spring semester, we always try to have a good time with it. I'm not a big believer in making you sit through. We go until we're done. So I'm not a big believer in saying that if the class is an hour and a half or whatever, that you've got to sit there through we're not going to find busy work to keep you there for an hour and a half, right? We're going to go until we're done. And we try to make it, again, as hands-on as we possibly can so that everybody, ideally, what my goal is for everybody is that if that's your desire is to have an on-air position somewhere, by the time you walk out of this class that you actually have a demo, you've got something you can take with you that you can say, here's what I can do. That's what I want to create for everybody.
Well, that's good. Well, how can anyone interested in this class sign up for it?
Well, probably the easiest thing to do would be to reach out to Chris Willis here on camera, on campus rather, and have Chris be able to hook you up. He can probably answer most of the questions, or he can refer you to me, and we can get you in and get you set up.
Right, but you are the real Chris on camera, so
that's true.
You don't want to go.
That's
to the
true.
One behind the camera.
No, you wouldn't want to do that.
Well, that's great information. Thank you very much
for
joining us here. So for more information or to sign up for sports broadcasting class, contact Chris Willis, the program coordinator, at chris.willis@chattanoogastate.edu. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of The Student Voice. Have a great day.